Distinguished African Americans in the History of the University of Iowa Athletics by Taylor Chapman. University of Iowa in 1855 was the first school in the United States to admit both men and women on equal biases. This integration that happened at the University of Iowa was effectively successful. Along with giving other ethnic groups chances to further their education, the university opened the doors for future success in the athletic department. Over the years, the sports team at Iowa have been extremely successful. But there was a few people that set the foundation for the specific sport of football. Two men had great careers while at the University of Iowa. Frank Kinley Holbrook was known for being an African American that competed in football and one of the nation's first black college athletes. Holbrook played for the University of Iowa in 1895. This was just 1 year prior to the Plessy v. Ferguson case, where there was an argument over upholding the constitutionality of the state laws requiring racial segregation in public facilities under the doctrine of separate but equal. Plessy was a man that had black skin, and one day he boarded a white-only train and was asked to move. He refused and was arrested. The races were still separated. From what history says, supposedly the African American Civil Rights Movement ended in 95. Although there was racial barriers within the rest of the country, that did not stop Holbrook from continuing to do what he loved. Along with football, he also ran track and field in 95 and 96, but in 96 he lettered in track as well as football. Holbrook was Iowa's leading scorer and ended up leading the Hawkeyes to their first football conference title in the school's history. During one game against Mizzou, Holbrook was denied the ability to play in the game, but the Iowa officials declared there would be no games unless Holbrook was allowed to play. Holbrook got one of the two touchdowns of the game. The final score was 12-0. This was not the first incident the Holbrook family had issues with. Holbrook's father, Frank Sr., was born a slave in the South in 1851. He was bought and sold on several occasions, and at the first chance of freedom, he escaped and sought refuge with the Union Army during the Civil War in Virginia. He became a servant for the captain that was from Iowa, and when the war ended, Holbrook went back to Iowa with the captain. In 1872, Mr. Holbrook moved to Tipton, Iowa, and started his life as a free man. Frank Sr. set up his son to have a life for opportunity. Frank Jr., throughout his college career, was best known for his excellence in football and track at the University of Iowa during a time period where he was not considered equal to the white man. Along with Frank Holbrook, there was another phenomenal African American football player, Fred Slater, also known as Duke. He was born on December 9th, 1898, just 2 years before 1900, when lynching had become virtually a fact of life as a means for intimidating African Americans. Between 1886 and 1900, there were more than 2,500 lynchings in the nation. That is about 180 African Americans killed every year for 14 years straight. As racism was still alive in his years, he overcame everything that was against him. Even his own father forbade him from playing football. He went against his will and went out for the team anyway. At this time, players had to purchase their own helmets and shoes. Unfortunately, Slater was very poor and was not able to afford a helmet, so he played without one in high school, and ended up leading his high school team to the state championship game his freshman year in Illinois. In 1918, Slater began going to the University of Iowa, where he was so successful that he was named All-Big Ten 3 years in a row while he continued to play without a helmet. He had also become the first black All-American in Iowa history in 1921. After Slater graduated, he continued to build a name for himself when he started playing professional football in 1927 and 1929. At this time, he was the only black man to go pro. Even at this level of professionalism, he still faced discrimination in many different ways. He was attacked in hotels where the team was staying, restaurants where they were eating, and he was even forced to sit out of a game. The game that he was forced to sit out, his team lost to in 1924. Fred W. Duke Slater is now known as a legend, and on his gravestone it says, Judge of the Circuit, Court of the Cook County, Slater of Iowa, All-American, a legend on his own lifetime. Because Fred Slater left such a great impact on the University of Iowa, he has a special place for remembrance today. And lucky enough, 499 students get to live in there. The Slater residence, located on west side of campus, is named after him. The reason Frank Kingsley Holbrook and Fred Slater are praised for their accomplishments is because they overcame what society wanted. Holbrook and Slater, being two African-American males in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, they are born hated by people. And the broader message of them is that historically they were supposed to fail and be worthless. They went against all the odds of being poor, helmetless, and black, and they accomplished great things. These two men are both legends of their own time.